This is Channel 253. Beep, boop, boop.
On this episode of the Grit and Grain Podcast.
But you kind of play this game when you're doing the movie thing, is you sit around and you point at something and you say, that could be a movie.
Oh, sure.
And it's a fun game because it works with anything. You can point to anything on the table and say, that could be a movie.
Yeah.
Maybe not a good one, but then the trick would be to make a good movie.
Well, I think we already just talked about one. Bars that might have smells or odors when you scratch them.
Yeah, no.
You can go around the whole world for that one.
Yeah.
Channel 253 is supported by Microsoft. Microsoft is committed to civic conversations like those on Channel 253 that inform and empower Washington communities. To learn more, visit aka.ms/Microsoft in Washington.
Welcome to the Grit and Grain Podcast, where we explore and celebrate the craft beer industry, community, and history in Tacoma, Washington, and surrounding Pacific Northwest areas. Thank you so much for hanging out. Let's get to it. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Grit and Grain Podcast. Coming to you guys from the Parkway Tavern in Tacoma, Washington, talking about all of your favorite beer nerd stuff. My name is Matt McLaren. And I'm here with Ron Swarner, as always.
Hello, Matt.
Welcome back.
Thanks.
By the way, thank you for your lovely outro last week.
Yeah.
Tons of compliments.
Did you read it? You read it.
I on air?
Yeah.
Yeah. I had no idea.
I thought you were pretty nice to him.
I thought so too.
I was
It could have been
excited about the things you were going to make him say, but you're a kind soul.
Jesus. And then Sean Jackson, as always.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
You got your TV hair on today.
I do. Yeah. Fresh cut.
Nice. Looking good.
Damn it. When we have video, that's going to make a lot of sense. Next year. So actually, before we start on anything, thanks to everybody who was very nice and positive about last week's episode, where we talked about all of the cool homebrew stuff going on at North 47 Brewery with the Browns Point Homebrew Club. Homebrewing is something I got into a few years ago with a friend of mine who's also a very skilled homebrewer, and getting to know those guys and then actually getting to bring them here and talk about it was awesome, and it was cool that it was received so positively. So thank you, everybody, for the nice comments. Our guests today are beer industry and industry adjacent, and they're doing something that's fucking awesome and will contribute and highlight a lot of the beer history that we've kind of gushed about on some previous episodes of this podcast. Ron, who are we talking to today?
We're talking to Justin Peterson of the 1111s and the Valleys and the Peaks and Pints. And we're talking to Isaac Olson, who is a filmmaker, director, editor, with a little side note of girl trouble.
Yeah, that's lurking around back there someplace.
So two Tacoma famous in the house.
Right on. Thanks for coming, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have 100 things to talk about.
We do. Where do we start? Thankfully, Justin and Robbie are pack rats, because that's how this whole thing started.
We do like collecting stuff. My mom once said, if you have more than 3 of something, it's a collection. And I have a lot of more than 3s of things. Both my dad and mom just had stuff everywhere growing up. It was like always had something to look at. So naturally, I think I was born into it. But my brother and I like beer stuff, so we like collecting that and what's around the Northwest, Rainier beer stuff. And it's cool. So
if you guys have ever been in the R room at 1111, you'll know exactly what he's talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was, we just needed something to fill that space. And we're like, we got a lot of Rainier stuff, so let's do that.
Dude, it's perfect. It's like a whole, I don't know, being there with all the industry guys and sitting in that little pocket. There's, I don't know, some kind of electric about it, actually. It's perfect.
Pretty much Peaks and Pines was planned there in that table.
Yeah.
Dude. I have the feeling a lot of Tacoma history has been made in the R room at 1111.
Well, if you look at all 3 bars, the actual bar itself, they're all very similar.
Oh yeah,
they all have the same kind of design to them. Obviously, Peaks being the 3rd back bar we built, It has a little more texture to it. But yeah, it's kind of like you find a formula and you keep going with it.
Nally Valley pickles.
Yeah. Yep. To expand on that, so people know.
I'm going to throw you
Fucking inside joke. Well, what the fuck are you talking about, Ron?
Apparently, we're talking about pickles now.
I'm glad you brought that up because that's our next documentary. Nally Valley pickles.
A shout out to longshoreman Jerry Collin. He was a friend of ours, and at one point when we were building 1111, he said, "Do you guys need any wood? I have a bunch of Nally Valley pickle barrel wood." I had no idea what that was, but I knew Nally Valley. I just didn't realize that there was still like wood from the barrels just laying around. And he had a stack in his yard, so it's pretty much what we built everything out of now.
Is pickle barrels?
Yeah, yeah,
That's fucking awesome.
yeah.
I
So
did not know that.
yeah, the whole entire bar at Peaks and Pines and 1111 are all pickle barrels.
It's all made of pickles.
Yep.
That's
I mean,
pretty
you cut
rad.
into it, it smells like Tim's jalapeno chips, kind of.
Oh my god!
That's what I always think.
Please don't go vandalizing the bars at these places just to test that shit.
Everyone's sitting there with their car keys. Just
Yeah,
running around,
seriously.
We have the world's
That's just a fun fact for
the
everybody.
world's only scratch and sniff bar. Well, there's probably other bars that are scratch and sniff, but I don't know if you want to
They
smell.
don't smell as good as
is probably
pickles.
the best of the.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So was the movie, the whole documentary, was it created sitting at that bar in the 1111?
It gets a little foggy on that, but the origination really in the Rainier room we had a TV that played all of the Rainier beer commercials, the classic ones, from on a loop basically. So you just sit there and watch them, and for years we had this on the TV, and naturally you're just like, man, these commercials are great, and Isaac had the idea of the very first idea of there's got to be where's the original film for this? Like there's got to be a better looking version of this, and that was kind of like the first goal was like, can we just make a better version to show people in the bar?
Yeah, those were humble roots, but
Yeah, humble roots for sure. Yeah.
But you kind of play this game when you're doing the movie thing. Is you sit around and you point at something and you say that could be a movie.
Oh, sure.
And it's a fun game because it works with anything. You can point to anything on the table and say, that could be a movie.
Yeah.
Maybe not a good one, but then the trick would be to make a good movie.
Well, I think we already just talked about one. Bars that might have smells or odors when you scratch them.
Yeah, no,
You can go around the whole world for that one.
I already wrote that up in my
Canes,
head.
here we come.
Yeah. So it's just a fun game you play from day to day. So it was just another one of these mindless thoughts like, oh yeah, those commercials. That could be a movie. Let's do that. So.
And you did it.
And we did it, yeah. So well, you have to do this all the time because eventually one will take, and that's kind of the only science to this stuff. Is you just have to have 100 of those in your head all the time. One of them will hit. So this was the one that hit. So
So can you explain to people what the concept is, like, for this whole thing?
well, there's these commercials, see, and they're they're real popular around here. And they were made from 74 to 87. There's about 120 of them all together.
Oh, damn. I didn't know there was that many.
And I hadn't sat down and watched all of them in a while. I'm from here. I know them. I've seen most of them. But we were making this video loop for 1111. So I just sat down and watched all 120 of them in one sitting because I got sucked in.
Of course.
And I was like, these really are good. Like,
Yeah.
we could make a National Geographic documentary about the wild Rainiers if we had all the outtakes. That's a great idea. So I called them and I said, we should do something with this Rainier stuff. We should find all the old outtakes and rushes and stuff. We should make a nature documentary about the Mountain Fresh Rainiers.
Yeah.
And he said, great. So we called our buddy Kurt, who worked at Rainier,
Right.
and just got it rolling right away.
Kurt Stream literally wrote the book on Rainier.
Yep. Kurt's the
he's
guy
the
you got
man
to
to call.
call. First phone call.
Yep.
But to clarify, we got the idea rolling right away, because it was like, hey, let's just throw this idea around a little bit further, but then luck would happened to come upon us fairly quickly after that. Isaac could kind of fill you in a little bit on that.
Yeah, well, so I didn't know who to call because I don't know if it's common knowledge, like who was behind the creation of these ads. Does the name Terry Heckler ring a bell with anybody?
Mm-hmm.
You hear that name, what do you think of?
Starbucks.
Yeah. Well, so he's the guy behind the ads. It was his agency.
No way.
Yep.
He drew the logo for Starbucks, and that kind of spawned his fame. Yeah.
The two guys had this firm. It was called Heckler Bowker. Gordon Bowker is one of the three guys that started Starbucks.
So the whole time these Rainier ads, the whole thing is going. He's also grinding coffee and doing his thing in his house,
Building a heinous empire.
and then apparently it was so popular because he got so into it that him and his buddies, convinced each other to open up some stores. But that was all going on during this whole Rainier thing.
Yeah, it was a very fertile period in Seattle, like 1971 about.
Sure.
And the only client Heckler Bowker had before Rainier was K2 Skis. They did a bunch of stuff for them. So they were kind of unproven, young, hip, kind of counterculture type people.
Sure.
And this guy, Jim Foster at Rainier, took a chance. Like the
He saw the K2 stuff, though, and was like, this is different and cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rainier was looking for anything at that
Yeah,
time.
that was just
The early
unique
70s was a strange period for a lot of business.
Like we've talked about that in beer, especially like how few breweries there were, how beer was like, it was still not even subculture. It was just like under the radar, especially for small local producers, which Rainier kind of was at that time. Like they were among the smallest breweries, even though they're fucking huge. At that time, it was so consolidated. There was no small craft. And so they were probably looking for anything that differentiated them from, the biggest breweries in the country.
And they really had been through like 4 or 5 agencies in 4 years. They
Big agencies,
including some really
too,
big
yeah.
ones like Wells, Rich and Green. McCann Erickson was another one.
Mm-hmm.
They just went through all these high power type houses, and
Right.
nothing was working.
Expensive, too. Like, at
Oh,
the
I'm
time,
sure.
like, they're paying big money for these guys to come up with these ads, and I don't think they were, a couple things were sticking, but overall, like, they weren't sticking. And, like you said, Jim Foster was, like, had the mind to go outside of the corporate ad agency world and go to some small new market in Seattle.
And there was
Yeah.
still this attitude back then of like the guy chomping the cigar, looking at the kid saying, who the hell knows what it is? But let's try it. Let's put it out.
Sure.
So they got it. They had a good chance from that kind of thinking,
Interesting.
which you don't see too much now. But it was
Everything's so like highly developed in
Yes,
terms of like
yeah.
marketing methodology
Yeah.
that you wouldn't like.
And even the first 5 or 6 years of the new style ads, there were still guys grumbling in the background saying, we got to stop this bullshit. We got to go back to the real stuff. We got to go back to hops and grains. Like, we got a quality product. And like,
People need to know what we put into this.
like, these guys are goofing on our product. Like, they're
Right.
goofing on the grains and hops.
Right. Little did they know they were. Not that we do that every week, but like they just had no idea that like this
They didn't-
like incredible cult kind of like bit of media was being formed.
They didn't realize that you could be fun with your product and include like a whole entire like genre that maybe you were ignoring before.
Sure.
What did
I don't know
Rainier
if genre
think?
is the right word, but
What's that?
What did Rainier think about all the ads?
Well, it was mostly the sales that they paid any attention to. So they said, well, like, what's the funny quote? It's always there's this like legendary meeting.
oh yeah, like yeah, it was like-
Terry always talks
yeah.
about this. He
it was
says,
like, when are we going to go back to these old ads that we were doing? These new ads just stink, And they're like, we'll go back to the new ads when sales go down.
yeah, when they stop working,
They
we'll
stop
stop
working.
doing it.
Yeah,
Dang.
and they, it was like, and then
So-
it went on for what 12 years or something.
Yeah, so I don't think Rainier, at least at first, even really fully understood like the power of this whole brand loyalty thing versus like selling beer like a car or a vacuum cleaner or something.
Can you guys? So for anybody who hasn't seen these old ads, can you describe one of them just so people know like what they kind of looked like?
Well, my favorites involve the Wild Rainiers, which are giant beer bottles with legs.
Yep.
And it's very observational, subtle humor. Just the wild Rainiers show up in different scenarios.
I like to call it the Sasquatch of the Northwest. Dissect that a little bit. Sasquatch is Northwest.
I was going to say, isn't Sasquatch the Sasquatch?
I'm kidding. But it is like one of those mythical beasts that roam, roam the
totally.
wild. And there's something magical about that.
Yeah, so the ads were about sighting of these creatures, and then there were a lot of parody ads, and a lot of them, at least from the first 2 years, it's very hard to pinpoint exactly what the parody is, because it would have been something that just, went by too fast that you barely remember it.
Sure.
But there was a Lawrence Welk parody. What else? There's
Blues Brothers. There's
Rambo.
the Rambo.
Yeah, they got into Rambo
there's,
later.
The Coneheads. That's later for sure. But then, yeah, like you said, there's TV shows that they're making fun of that we, even at the time you might be like, wait, what's that from?
Do you remember that show Death Valley Days? There's Cold Pack Days.
Yeah.
There's some Wild West stuff.
Yeah. The Wild West stuff is really cool because it's like a big open area with large scale shots.
These ads were all very cinematic, even though they were done on a budget.
At this time, were there any other like beer companies that were tying their products into like pop culture references like that?
If they were, it was on a very subtle level, not like this.
Nothing
No.
was like this.
No.
I mean, very quickly, other beer companies came along.
After the success of this particular...
I would think that a lot of them were influenced by these campaigns.
Totally.
Because,
Budweiser frogs.
Yeah, Budweiser has at least two that I would say were direct rip-offs. But,
of Rainier.
Yeah, but...
yeah, that's the very first Rainier spot of the new era, 1974. So we're coming up on the 50th anniversary of what's known as the Frog Spot, which it's just a single shot of a pond and Mount Rainier looming in the back, and it's at twilight, and the camera's moving through the weeds, and you just hear frogs chirping.
Yeah, you don't even see them. It's just Rainier.
Yeah,
Rainier.
And that's
so
it.
It's
this was before the
they're
Budweiser
trying to mimic
frogs.
Yeah,
This was 20 years.
Just so people know.
Yeah, it's the same. They totally just took it and went with the new
In
thing.
fact, the story is that Budweiser waited till the statute of limitations was over. There's some kind of advertising rule, so they waited. 20 years they waited, and then they came out
like
with theirs.
to the day.
Yeah,
yeah.
That's like crazy. I don't know. I imagine a lot of people don't totally know how much of like beer marketing and media was influenced by like the very sort of like underground and like underdog approach that Rainier took at this time.
I even heard this story that I didn't know, which was that Johnny Carson used to play these ads just like as a throwaway segment, like, yeah, look what they're doing up here in Puyallup. Doing some weird stuff up here, and let's take a look at this.
They have a motorcycle going down this sidewalk.
Yeah, the motorcycle is the classic.
Yeah, dude.
Part of the lexicon.
I mean, pretty much, if we mention that we're doing this project before anybody even says like, oh wow, that's cool, they just go Rainier beer, which is totally cool, but you have to wait through it every time. You're like,
man.
So anyway, I'm doing this project on the commercial. No, I'm just kidding. It's awesome. It's awesome. It's actually super cool because that's exactly the point.
Yeah,
is that these commercials are so ingrained into your childhood and memory, even if you didn't grow up, like literally when it first aired. It's been passed down to you. Mm. It's what would be the term for that? Yeah,
but it really shows you the genius of Heckler and Bowker, because this was all by design. They had it seemed very like seat of the pants, but it was very, very thought out, very schemed.
Did you get a chance to interview these people?
Yes, we've interviewed many people.
Yeah, we're trying to interview as much of the people that were involved as possible. We've interviewed even some of the actors too.
The motorcycle guy?
Yep. We interviewed Randy Chase. He actually was head of the art department too, and he heard about this commercial and was like, "I want to ride the motorcycle, and I'm the only one here that rides a motorcycle. So can I ride the motorcycle?" So, he's. he went to like as far as the motorcycle. If we want to talk like folklore, people are always like, "Wonder what happened to that motorcycle." Well, he had just gone to a dealership and was like, "Hey, this would not happen today, of course." But he went to this dealership and said, "Hey, we're shooting this commercial. Would you like your motorcycle featured in it?" And they're like, "Sure." So then he just drove off the lot, filmed the commercial. Wow. Filmed the commercial, and then brought it back in it's probably in someone's garage, or who even knows now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
he just borrowed it for a day.
He just borrowed it for a day and it went back. There's no like, they didn't buy it. It's not like, no one knows anything what happened to it. But
That's great.
yeah, things were different back then for commercial making.
Different.
So like, it was a little looser. You could do these parodies and you could do this stuff without anybody like yelling at you.
What were the wild Rainiers made out of?
When they first started, they were made of really dense, like particle board or something, and then they streamlined them and made them out of lightweight fiberglass. And we've got a couple.
Oh, you do?
You
Yeah.
have some?
We've been messing around. I've been wearing them and tights. I've been liking the tights.
You have enough for a collection.
the tights.
I don't. We have 2 right now.
Son of a bitch.
So it's actually on my front porch right now. But not like no one can see it. It's not visible to the outside world. But every time I come home, I'm like, howdy. So just, it's just one of those things that makes you smile.
We're very method that way. You have to really get immersed in your subject matter.
Oh my God.
There's other props out there that we're still kind of
Yeah, we just
about.
actually, a guy reached out to me recently, and he did the salt crystals on the pretzel for the giant pretzel that trailed the giant cold pack. And I'm like, I
Gotta
want
get
to
that
hear
pretzel.
more.
I
Like,
hope everybody leaves this podcast episode with questions.
yeah, like I want to hear more about the salt crystals. you know?
Dude.
Like, I don't even know if it pertains to the story at all, but it's like, that's cool. Like, you literally made little salt crystals for this pretzel.
So much of this project, the research has been done in YouTube video comments, and that's what's great about this local folklore stuff is you post something, and then 50 people chime in. They're like, "This was shot on my dad's property."
No fucking way.
And
Or
you just-
I was one of the beers.
Yeah. So
You know?
everyone's
And you're like,
involved
"Oh my God, let me
in
DM this guy."
some level. Yeah. So I put it on the list, and it's like, all right, I'm going to have to reach out to that guy.
Yeah. What
And
a crazy resource.
Actually, I think is that how we got a hold of Mac McDonald?
Yeah, that's how we found Mac.
So
YouTube
Mac
comment.
was in like some of my favorite commercials, which was mainly they were my favorite because they made these living room sets out of like cars and
Well, here
boats.
I'll kind of
Yeah,
describe the ad
it.
as you're in the middle of a desert, and there's a guy reclining in a chair out there in the wild, and he picks up his binoculars and sees the herd of wild Rainiers coming, and he says, "They're out there, Willis." Camera pans back, and he's in a living room, but the living room has wheels, and so he pulls back on his lampshade, which kicks the vehicle into gear, and he starts chasing the wild Rainiers.
They were fully operational, operating vehicles, though. It wasn't like they were getting pulled by a trailer or anything. Like, these guys were driving it from the lamp, and they were steering it from the lamp base. And
Yeah, a little plant like by the chair. That was
Yeah.
like your clutch or something.
yeah,
But yeah, fully autonomous vehicles.
yeah,
Yeah.
and they're like chasing after guys with a beer in a beer costume.
I feel like
So,
this
like,
is a start to a great parade.
Yeah,
Oh yeah,
they did parades. They did do parades.
yeah.
Yeah.
The Wild
Beer Week,
Rainiers.
Yeah, seriously.
No, they
we
used
hear
to make
a lot
appearances,
about
yeah.
we hear a lot about them doing parade type events. So
This sounds like
that would've been
it's like
cool.
the perfect flash mob setup is like
Yeah.
just out of every like alleyway like the Wild Rainiers come.
You know, when we're doing our premiere situation, whenever that is next year, maybe we should think about a parade. That's
yeah,
pretty good.
that's not a bad idea.
Definitely think
pretty
about a
good.
parade.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about it
20,
right now.
21 plus, I guess. No, I don't know how that works.
We'll figure it out.
But Mac McDonald also, just speaking of one of the actors, super cool guy, and like every time you interview someone, you find out a lot more about what was going on at the time. And he actually came from Apocalypse Now and American Graffiti, and he was down in L.A. working on movies before he came up here. So he shared with us all of that too, which was really cool. And he had a ton of behind-the-scene photos where he snuck a camera on set of Apocalypse Now.
Holy crap!
Yeah, he showed up with his Apocalypse Now scrapbook and was showing us stuff, and it's pretty impressive.
That's amazing.
But he kind of was done with that scene and came up here and started working at Boeing, and then I think he just submitted his info to a local talent agent, and they're like, "You should do these Rainier commercials."
These Rainier ads, yeah.
Yeah. So they're all cool stories, like any of these people, because it had to have been an experience to be doing these commercials, and then go out and see them, and then see the reaction of the public.
Oh yeah,
you walk into a bar and people get excited about.
Yeah, especially when you're like also a consumer who sees every other beer ad in existence, and you're like, "What the fuck are we doing here?" Like, this is the goofiest thing I've ever seen, and then everybody loves it, and then everybody else changes their marketing strategy based on these what seemed like goofy ideas at the time.
Yeah, and you become a local celebrity that lasts forever. Like there's guys that hold on to this. They're like, I was that guy in this Rainier commercial, and you still see them today, and they're still that guy, and you're like, that's awesome.
Were all these people cooperative with the interviews?
Oh yeah, this has been a dream. This
Yeah.
has been the easiest project to work on. And I'm even including the one I made about my own family. It's even easier than that. But see, it's a different dynamic with a lot of these guys because nobody, especially the directors and Terry is very reclusive. It was always very mysterious. But most of these guys feel like they never got much credit. And so they're really interested to talk to you because their life's work is just kind of mysterious,
Well, it was also the beginning for a lot of the people that worked in this because Terry and everybody involved were so young. They were kind of new to the business, and being that Rainier was a starting point for them, they all went on to do a lot of cool things afterwards. And maybe Rainier kind of was a forgotten thing. And when we show up a little bit proven because we've already started digitizing some stuff, and we're like, not only do we find the original film, but we're working on making a documentary. Here's some clips. That's a good selling point.
Right,
and it's also whoa, that's awesome.
Here's what this could be.
Yeah, they no one's ever seen the film in the way that we've digitized it.
That's
even the people that it was immediate. Isaac could talk a little bit more about this, but one of the cool factors is that no one's ever seen it like this. So you can expand.
I'll try and
technical.
I don't know. I just say
cool and stuff.
I'm gonna before
Isaac,
you do,
we're
we're gonna take a super quick break.
Good, yeah.
But hold on to that for just a second, and we will be right back. Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for hanging out. Once again, as always, want to give a quick shout out to Channel 253. Doug, our wonderful producer, and Eric, actually, who is here at the moment, is Channel 253. And these guys run a fantastic network of podcasts that cover a range of topics, all of which are important to Tacoma as a community and as a city. And if you want to stay connected, listening to those podcasts and supporting those guys is a great way to do it. You can go to channel253.com/membership, sign up, and support all of the work that they do, because it really is great. And I've learned so much in just exploring your guys' podcast myself. So thank you, as always, to Doug, who makes us sound so professional every week. This would be a professional dumpster fire if it was not for you. Yeah. So Isaac, you were holding a thought, and yeah, go for it.
Okay, I'll try and make this really succinct. So
I forgot what we were talking about.
We'll put everybody to sleep. Well, okay, so we're talking about these ads. These ads are wonderful.
Yep.
So you want to make a movie about these ads. So what's the first thing you do? Well, you can't make a whole movie using the ads as you find them today, which are on bootleg VHS primarily.
Right.
I mean, you could do that, and if you watch enough of these streaming platforms, the bar's pretty low, I'll admit. But we're about excellence here, and we don't want to do anything unless we can do it right.
Totally.
So you need to get the film.
Mostly right, at least.
Mostly, yeah. You want to at least strive, but yeah. So the stuff was shot on film, so you got to find the film. But that's a long shot,
Totally.
especially in something, it's not a movie where, you've spent all this money and it's a movie, so let's keep all this stuff.
And it's like archived neatly in like a thing.
Right, but
Yeah.
even that is
Downgrade.
is iffy.
Yeah.
Well, no, the fact that you'd even keep stuff.
Oh, yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
if you know
yeah.
anything about like they did that big Blade Runner restoration years ago,
Right.
and that stuff was just going to get thrown away. So it's there's just no guarantees of this stuff.
Well,
it's around or it's not. But
If you could picture like what it takes to like store an hour's worth of film versus an hour on tape, like
Oh, yeah.
when Isaac was like, I wonder where the original film is, I was thinking like, yeah, I wonder where the original videotape is, in my head. But of course, it was filmed on film at the time,
Right.
And they take up a lot of space. They're in
So much
giant
space.
cans.
Yep.
And they were filmed on 16 and 35 millimeter, which is basically movie quality.
yeah.
So
So that was the question, and we thought we got to figure this out. And in my head, I didn't want to do the project unless we could find the film. That would be the whole point. Is
So you saw the commercials, you had the idea, and you were like, I'm not doing this unless I can find
that?
the
Yeah. In my
actual
head,
film.
that's just your little the gate by
Yeah.
which you have to figure this out.
As a listener, this sounds like a fucking. There's no way.
No, that's what I thought.
Oh,
too.
yeah.
I thought.
and it's not going to be a quick, and it's going to be spread out all over everywhere.
Well,
Yeah, it's gotta be.
I thought the best case scenario is somebody saved, like, when you go to all the trouble, you'd make a film print, which the color's probably crap, but you could maybe bump it up a little bit. So maybe someone has little film prints of every 30-second spot. And right there, that would bump the quality up by half. So not great, but that would be enough to do the movie. Because my thought at this time was not even to have, like, people interviewed or do any of this stuff. It was just going to be like, collage all these ads together, put them in order, and find like a through line. Make a story out of 120 ads.
Yeah.
So pretty not highfalutin concept at this time.
Sure.
Anyway, so I thought, well, we got to find the film. So I made some call. The first person I called was this woman, Manny Hadlock. Do you know about Bear Creek Studio?
Oh yeah, Soundgarden.
They are a part of this story too. Did you know that? They did all the soundtracks for the Rainier commercials. in
Holy
fact,
shit. Are you serious?
In fact, the way Manny and Joe, they're this couple that started it in the 70s, the way they tell it is Bear Creek is almost like the house that Rainier built, because they were getting so much money from all this Rainier work that they needed a dedicated studio, and so they built Bear Creek Studio. All because of Rainier.
And then some of the most legendary albums.
And then
were
went
recorded
on,
there.
yeah, and then the story takes off there, yeah.
Yeah, I think
out
Foo
of here.
Fighters were there.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Brandy Carlisle is there.
Beer
Yeah.
builds
it's-
everything.
Everything. And it's, yeah, so, no, this story, the more you get into it, the more you find that the web has
Pretty sure my
long
uncle
stretching.
recorded there too, actually.
Yeah, oh, that's right.
The
We
Sky
never
Boys.
asked them, yeah.
We have to find out.
So I called her. Someone told, just, because of course it's Tacoma. The only reference or the only through line I had was the music one.
Oh yeah.
I was like, oh, call Manny. She might know. So I called her and she said, no, we don't. We just did the soundtracks. We don't have any of the film. But she pretty much just told me the whole story. Like,
Yeah.
this guy did the early ones. Terry and Gordon were this firm. Gordon did Starbucks. Well, she just laid it all out in like 2 paragraphs. She told me the whole story, which I never would have. This is buried history. Like, you have to dig around. A lot of it's not common knowledge, the
course.
guys behind this stuff. So she gave me a couple leads, and I thought, okay, I'll call a few more people and I'll see about this film. And then that week, or maybe within 2 or 3 weeks of that, I found the film by accident
What?
here in town.
Yeah.
By accident?
10 minutes at most from 11:11.
So project solved. We're making a movie now.
Yeah.
I would also say,
Made of questions right now.
well, I will tell you this. I do know this. You only get like one of those in a career. So I already blew mine. That was it. I'll never have another break like that ever. But that's where you're getting into the realm of the movie gods, and you have to do what the movie gods say. You have to go through the door. So So we did.
So a lot of this was like kind of just like figuring stuff, like half-assed, like, yeah, like, do you have this, or like, and then you actually found.
Yeah, there was no quest involved. I didn't even have a chance to start my.
And you were
quest.
like, wow, okay, I guess I'm doing this.
Yeah, so I thought, okay, well, that's strange. But
Okay, please explain how
Enter
you found this.
Ed.
Mr. Ed Nolan, a legendary figure, and actually he is well known. I knew about Ed because of Art Chantry, the graphic designer. Totally unrelated. I wasn't even thinking about Rainier enough to talk to anybody, including Art, about it at this time. We were working on this Ventures movie, so I was still in Ventures mode, and I thought maybe some local museums have footage of like Pat O'Day's armory dances, stuff like that. So I was snooping around on that level, and Art was like, "You should really call my friend Ed. He's really cool, and yeah, you should just call him. He's at Special Collections at the Washington State Historical Society, which is just right down there by the Stadium Bowl. It's like, you should call Ed. Ed's cool." And I thought, yeah, I will call Ed. This is the other thing, the lesson in this: always call somebody, even if like you don't know why. Just call him.
Yeah.
So I called Ed and said, I'm doing these movies, and just total bumblecore. Like, what do you know? Like, and he said, well, come down and I'll show you what I got. And he was just a friendly guy. So we got together and he showed me what they had, and it was mostly news film, like old Channel 11 Tacoma stuff.
Oh, yeah,
That's
yeah.
a whole other story.
Brakeman Bill.
Yeah, exactly. So I said, well, this isn't, what I'm looking for, but I'm really interested in this. And he said, well, let's get you certified as a volunteer. And I said, okay, cool, let's do it. Like, you got to diversify your time doing these film related things. So I thought, yeah, well, let's be a volunteer. So I did, and I was like viewing some of the film they had, though they didn't really have equipment to view it. Mm-hmm. So we actually bought some film viewing, just the basics, so we could look at film. So I would see Ed from time to time, just hanging out at the museum and stuff. And he asked me what other projects I was thinking about. And I said, well, Rainier might be a good project. And he said, oh, yes, Rainier, we have a lot of posters. We even have our very own wild Rainier in the basement. And I'm like, oh, cool. But I didn't think much of that.
Sure.
I said, well, I'm really looking for film. Do you know anything about that? And he said, we got some tapes. I got a few Rainier tapes. And I'm like, oh, tapes might be good. Yeah. So maybe another week went by. And he said, I told you about those tapes, right? Maybe I should just show you the tapes. And so he took me up to the vault. It's just like out of a bad movie.
Yeah.
Go over to the corner, and there's, stacks and stacks of film cans and film boxes. And I'm looking, and the labels are right there. It's like Rainier, motorcycle,
Heckler
Rainier,
Associates.
Heckler, Rainier Frogs,
my
Bowker,
God.
Heckler Bowker, I mean, it's the real thing. And I looked at him and was like, well, these aren't tapes. This is film. And he's like, yeah, I know. So he was slightly coy about
Goddamn.
well, no,
It was a friendly vetting.
no, he had to figure out if I was creepy or not.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when he decided,
It was smart. It was smart.
Yeah, I
so
respect that.
fooled another one, but when he sucker. Well, yeah. When he
So
decided,
all of this original film is just fucking sitting there.
it was just there.
Secretly,
God.
he had to have been excited because no one's even asked about it or even knew about it or anything for
40 years.
But see, this is the great
for a
thing
long
about
time.
Ed is his whole philosophy of what archives is they should be used,
Yeah.
and they should be known.
Dude,
So-
word, man.
He's a very important figure for me. He's really inspiring. But
Yep.
so
And he also single-handedly, pushed
So
the
here's the
movies.
story of how he got it. He got a call in '99 when the brewery was leaving town, and they were just getting rid of everything. And so,
But they didn't want this stuff to just get one by one parsed out. It was like, someone take it or dumpster.
yeah. So like Mohai, the Museum of History and Industry,
Yeah.
they got stuff too. They got the big R, the old one that used to rotate. So they got the R, and they got a bunch of other stuff too. But Ed got a call, and he was specifically interested in like all the old paintings in the what's it?
Mountain Room.
The Mountain Room.
Yeah, actually, the original Mountain Room painting is hanging in the hallways of.
If you go to their
the
website,
lobby. Yeah, it's
WSHS,
amazing.
and
They
look
completely
up
restored it.
Look up
Whoa.
the reading room. There's this giant painting, and it's by a famous artist. I can't remember his name, but yeah, that was the one that was just in the Mountain Room at Rainier for years. So he went with like the intention to get artifacts, stuff like this, and he was really interested in like records, like paper stuff, which they have that too. They have 200 boxes of that, which I also went through, but that's for another.
I gotta make
for another day.
one note. This is just an interesting fact, but the painting in the Rainier Room, they allowed smoking back then.
He told me about the restoration.
They had to
it's
completely
all
restore
yellow.
this amazing painting, but there was layers of tobacco smoke on it.
Oh my God.
Anyway,
That's
side
like
story,
pretty
but if you
on
think
brand,
about that,
though.
the person that's restoring this is like meticulously taking off tobacco layers.
Yeah,
Anyway, back to the story. I just
very,
like that.
a
It's
very
interesting.
careful, delicate putty knife kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was the stuff he was interested in. Nobody told him anything about film, nor would that have been on his radar anyway, because they don't really have a film department there. Because you need, great resources to have a film department.
Of course.
So he showed up, and he was taking all the stuff that he wanted, and they gifted it to them. So they own all this stuff. And then he went to some outbuilding and saw film on pallets, wrapped in saran wrap. And he said, well, what's all this? And they said, oh, those are the old commercials, film and stuff. We don't really know what to do with it. We don't want to throw it away, but we can't store it, so that's probably going to get junked. And he said, wow, I got to have that too.
Load me up.
Put it on the truck. So, and it's also that foresight of people in his profession. It's like, if you see something that seems important, even though it may not pay off even in this decade, you still got to do it. That's the whole point of the work.
So I got to add something to
Petersons
that.
with hoarding in their jeans were like, you know what? We feel that.
Yeah.
Well, what's
My
really
parents said the same thing.
what'll make you a little bit like ugh is how many commercials have been filmed by how many companies for how many businesses that were really cool, but maybe the business went out of business, or the ad agency went out of business, or the company went out of business, and whoever had this film, it's just gone.
It's gone, yeah.
So
people don't consider it an actual chunk.
a lot of
history.
times, you will never see a commercial again unless someone filmed it on their VCR,
right?
Or something like that. There's
the stuff is fleeting,
and earlier than that, it's gone forever.
Right.
So if you think about that, that's there's a lot of history in commercials, and
that is true.
The original film may be gone. Maybe there's just some VHS tape, but it's just kind of interesting, to actually have the original
Commercials
film.
were like the soundtracks of a lot of kids' lives too. Like you think about it like that. My kid, we have Netflix and we have we have all the streaming services, but he doesn't totally know what commercials are, and he still sees them occasionally and knows the theme song to some random cleaning commercial, and they really are. They're like the soundtrack of people's childhoods. And you're right. Once they're gone, they're gone.
Yeah.
And you don't think about it, and then you hear it, and you're immediately it's super nostalgic.
Something about that, and I think this might be the thing I'm looking forward to the most in this project is people being able to see Brewmaster ads again. Do you know about the Brewmaster? This was an old Rainier campaign in the 60s.
Pretty genius, actually.
And it was this character, the Brewmaster, with this fake mustache, and there were tons of these ads, but he was their mascot character.
Right.
And I'd heard my family talk about the Brewmaster for years, but those were so endangered you couldn't even find those on YouTube or anything.
But the interesting thing about the Brewmaster is why they made him, because most people could just be like, that was the Brewmaster of Rainier. And you're like, no, that was an ad campaign.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But
that was a character they made.
That was a character. But the reason they made the character was because the Brewmaster was so dedicated to quality that he was going to go up against these guys that want to use crappier grains and crappier product. He was going to stand firm and make sure that this is the best quality beer in the Northwest.
It was a one.
It's just like this guy is the brewmaster. I mean, he's like a muscle man, like cool mustache. Like the ad campaign is the brewmaster is the reason why Rainier beer.
But there were tons of these ads, and they all had the same joke. It was kind of like a Pepe Le Pew cartoon. Like there's the one joke, like when is the cat going to get the stripe on it? You know?
Oh yeah.
But it was always he was fighting with the higher ups because they just want. It's like no, that's fine. It's just fine. Like go home nights. You're working too hard, and he's like, no, the beer needs me.
The beer is quality.
Funny.
Quality is while I'm here.
It was so dedicated.
So dedicated. Yeah.
Anyway, this was some of the
that
most.
Seems to have aged well, considering the brewers that we've talked to who work fucking 14-hour days.
I can't wait till you see.
Good product.
I can't wait till you see some of this stuff because it's just the best of that era of advertising.
That's awesome.
But these were some of the most endangered because I've never seen them anywhere, nor has anybody else since they aired. And we got cans full of old Brewmaster ads. Why? Because they did a spoof in 1978 when it was the beer centennial year. It was Rainier's 200, or 100, yeah.
100, yeah.
Rainier was 100. And so they had some old leftover Brewmaster ads, and they just made this really quick, crude little compilation thing. It was like, you remember the old days and the Brewmaster? But in order to make that little hodgepodge, they just had like a bunch of old Brewmaster ads sent over so the editors could just pick and choose a couple of moments. Everything else got thrown away. So the only Brewmaster ads ever were just whatever the filmmakers like selected. And for that reason, we've got all the Brewmaster ads. So I can't wait for like, people my folks' age to like finally see the Brewmaster again because they never thought they would. And talk about ingrained in the childhood too.
Oh, totally.
Yeah. People
like
remember
that character.
And you know about it because there were bobbleheads. There's artifacts of the Brewmaster left.
Yeah, but most people like now is just like, hey, that was the bobblehead of the actual Brewmaster. But you're like, no, that was the ad campaign.
Before we run too far out of time, I wanted to bring. So you guys have been running a Kickstarter for anybody who has not been following, but everybody got a really exciting email this morning about that. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah,
we met our goal this morning, so now we're in relax mode. We're relaxed, guys.
So six days left, and and we've met our goal. So now is kind of the opportunity to still get people aboard because it's like, why not get cool stuff, and any extra donations go to us putting a little bit more into the movie.
For sure.
So
it all goes to the movie, and actually the more we raise, the sooner you will see it. So that's the main incentive.
Yeah. So and the reason we did Kickstarter was because it allows people to get involved, but also like you get something. Also, it's like you're not just giving us money to make this project. You're also getting like some cool one of a kind swag.
There is swag involved.
I am high on the swag list for my contribution.
Like a cool Art Chantry poster.
Yes, Art Chantry, who was mentioned earlier. Yeah, Northwest Treasure.
We have quite a few of those left, so that's a good level to get in on. Absolutely, limited number.
It'll still be open.
Still up?
Yeah. No, all the Rainier custom R's have been sold by Zeke. Zeke was the builder. He's him and his brother are big collectors in the Rainier world, and super cool guys.
And they've seen sections of our movie, and even they, the biggest Rainier collectors in the region, maybe in the world, even they are impressed and seeing stuff they've never seen.
Yeah.
So we figure we can impress them, then we must be onto something.
Sean wants to know whose kneecaps he needs to break in order to get one of those Rainier R's.
Well, we could talk. We could talk.
That's what I have. So that will be, just so people know, that will actually be live for a couple of days after this comes out. So they've hit their goal, but like you said, like take a chance and contribute to this so that we can see this stuff a little bit sooner.
Well, yeah, I mean, like even if you don't want anything and you just threw in $10, you'd be the first to know about anything happening.
Yeah.
So like anybody who donates to this is going to be the first to hear about where it's going to show, if there's early pre-sale tickets, just any event that we might be doing. So like no donations too small. It's like just get involved, say, hey, here's my email, and I just want to hear more about it. Maybe I can't afford to donate a lot, and then we're cool with that. It's just like just come aboard. Come aboard.
This is like the podcast. The whole thing here is obviously like the whole thesis is to show people how beer in the Northwest, in Tacoma, but also in the Northwest, has affected beer and culture in a lot of ways around the country. And this specific project highlights that exact thing in a way that, like, we certainly can't, but in a way that will probably connect with a lot of people who grew up seeing these ads. And again, it's probably the soundtrack of your childhood if you were, if you had a TV or a radio.
They proved beer could be fun, and not just like sports fun or mowing my lawn fun,
right?
Or like
this reached the nerds.
Yeah, this is like it's just a little more, and we're gonna prove
Mickey Rooney fun. Now that's fun.
Yeah. Mickey. Anybody yelling at the screen like Mickey Rooney?
There are some shots of Mickey Rooney in this where his face just fills the frame, and he's just like,
yeah.
I've been following this project for a minute now, actually, and I have never been more hyped for it until I talked to you guys about it for this hour.
Awesome. Well, we hope we gave you some new info.
Yeah.
So so if people want to check out more, where should they look for you guys?
Well, Kickstarter Rainier Beer
sure,
Movie,
right?
or
Rainier Movie.
Instagram at Rainier Beer Movie, Facebook at Rainier Beer Movie. We're trying to make it really simple.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Type in Rainier Beer Movie, you'll find us.
Awesome.
Yep. And the Kickstarter's up Tuesday the 25th
at 11
p.m.
That's
well done.
And
because of the bar. I get it.
Yeah. And we met our goal this morning at 11 a.m. I'm not shitting you.
Wait, I did not know that.
No.
Really?
Check it.
Stop.
Check it, dude.
The universe wants this to happen.
The beer gods and the movie gods are working in tandem in this.
Well, cool, man. Thanks again for rolling through, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks.
Sure. Awesome. Ron, you taking us out?
Yeah, we have a letter.
Oh.
From Mikey. Sean Jay's most recent Russian sailor story is proof positive that there is such a thing as too much barley wine. Keep it up. Great stuff.
Absolutely not. I just disagree wholeheartedly. I want a trial of a jury of my peers.
All right, Grit and Grainers, email us at cheers@gritandgrainpodcast.com with your comments, opinions, and light beer commercials with all those burly guys joshing around. But you don't need to be macho to enjoy Rainier Light.
Give me another beer, Ron.
Get it yourself, Matt. We read and drink everything we receive, and we try to respond as quickly as we can. If not online, then on air. You can subscribe to Grit and Grain on Apple Music, Spotify, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, and please leave us a review. Also, check us out on Channel 253 and gritandgrainpodcast.com. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter for episode notes, beer news, and our documented moments when we just want to shrug off the immediate bustling, combustible, congested universe of the city and head to the basement of the Washington State History Museum and bathe in the soft fluorescent lighting and enjoy the wondrous yesness of archivist Ed and his historical tinker toys. If this podcast is not what you expected, please alter your expectations. Typing cramps are often best relieved by extensive finger puppetry. No such thing as bad time to visit Tacoma. No such thing as too much barley wine, Sean. Tune in next Friday for more sweet chatter. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks again for tuning in. Don't forget to follow us at Grit and Grain Podcast wherever you get your social media and catch new episodes every Friday. Cheers.
This is Channel 253.